Denmark heats more homes through a single shared system than almost any other country on Earth. It's called district heating, and it's one of the reasons Danish homes rarely feel the cold, damp chill so many people assume comes standard with a Nordic winter. Today, I'm giving you 21 specific Danish home solutions, real building systems, real everyday fixes that turn a cold, dark house into one that genuinely doesn't feel that way, regardless of what's happening outside. Number 9 is a small architectural feature almost nobody outside Scandinavia has ever heard of, and it single-handedly solves one of the most common heat loss problems in older homes. And number 16 is the cheapest, fastest fix on this entire list. Something you can do this afternoon for the cost of a single trip to a hardware store. Here's the thread connecting all 21. None of these are decorative. Every single one exists because Denmark decided, at a national level in many cases, that a cold, dark house was a solvable engineering problem, not something you simply had to endure for half the year. If any of this is already reframing how you think about your own home, go ahead and hit like and subscribe if you're new here. This channel exists to hand you the real system behind Nordic living, and it genuinely helps to have you here for the rest of it. Let's start with number 1, the system running underneath nearly every Danish home you'll ever walk into. Item 2, underfloor heating, gulvvarme, standard in the majority of new Danish builds. Pipes carrying warm water run beneath the floor, heating the room from the ground up rather than blasting warm air from a vent near the ceiling. The result is no cold spots underfoot and far more even heat distribution than standard radiators. Retrofit cost varies significantly by floor type, but electric underfloor mats can be added under tile in a single bathroom relatively affordably as a starting point. Item 3, triple glazed windows, standard by regulation in new Danish construction. 2 panes of glass leave a single gap for heat to escape through. 3 panes create 2 insulating air gaps instead of 1, cutting heat loss dramatically compared to standard double glazing. If replacing every window isn't realistic, prioritize north-facing rooms and any window in your most used space first. Item 4, continuous cavity wall insulation, typically mineral wool, filling the gap between exterior and interior wall layers, rather than relying on the wall material alone to retain heat. This is a structural, professional installation item, but it's the single highest impact fix on this list for anyone building or doing a major renovation. Item 5, individual thermostatic radiator valves on every radiator, allowing each room to be heated to a different temperature rather than one setting controlling an entire home. Bedrooms run cooler, living spaces run warmer, and you're never heating an empty room to the same degree as the one you're actually in. These retrofit onto most existing radiators for a modest cost. Item 6, a wood-burning stove, brænde oven, as supplemental heat in the main living space. Common across Danish homes as a secondary, not primary, heat source, used on the coldest evenings to reduce load on the central system, while adding the specific kind of radiant warmth central heating alone doesn't produce. Item 7, an air-to-water heat pump, extracting ambient heat from outdoor air and transferring it into your heating system, even in cold temperatures. Scandinavian countries lead global heat pump adoption, specifically because the technology works efficiently, even well below freezing, and it costs significantly less to run than direct electric or oil heating over time, despite a higher upfront installation cost. Item 8. Mechanical ventilation with heat recovery, legally required in new Danish builds. Stale, humid indoor air is extracted and fresh air brought in, but the outgoing air's heat is captured and transferred to the incoming air first, so you get fresh circulation without simply venting your heating budget outside. Item 9, the one I promised, and it's a small architectural feature almost nobody outside Scandinavia knows exists: the vendvang, an enclosed entry vestibule between your front door and the rest of the home. Opening the front door directly into your living space lets a rush of cold air straight in every single time. A vendvang acts as a thermal buffer, absorbing that cold air exchange in a small enclosed zone before it ever reaches the rooms you're actually living in. If you don't have one architecturally, even a simple curtain or partition near an entry door recreates part of the same effect. Item 10. Weather stripping and door seals, checked and replaced regularly, not installed once and forgotten. Gaps around doors and window frames are responsible for a significant share of heat loss in older homes, and foam or rubber strip seals cost very little to replace. Item 11. Skylights, oven leaves, used specifically in rooms without exterior wall access to daylight, rather than relying entirely on artificial light in interior rooms. A skylight brings genuine daylight into a space that would otherwise stay dim year-round, which matters enormously during Denmark's short winter days. Item 12. Room orientation planned around daylight. Living spaces and kitchens positioned to face south where possible, maximizing the limited daylight hours winter provides, with bedrooms and less used rooms taking the darker north-facing positions instead. Item 13. Light-colored interior walls and ceilings, chosen specifically to reflect and bounce available daylight deeper into a room rather than absorbing it. A pale wall can measurably increase how bright a room feels without adding a single extra light source. Item 14. Layered warm tone lighting instead of a single overhead source. We've covered this in depth on this channel before, so briefly. Several smaller lamps do more for a room's warmth than one bright central fixture ever will. Item 15. Real functional candles used daily, not saved for occasions. Denmark burns significantly more candles per capita than almost anywhere else in Europe, used as an ordinary light source on completely ordinary evenings. Item 16. The one I promised. The cheapest and fastest fix on this entire list. A draft excluder along the bottom of exterior doors. A simple fabric tube or foam strip, costing very little, blocks the specific draft that sneaks in along the floor and makes an entire room feel colder than its actual temperature. Item 17. Down duvets. Diner. A genuine Danish export industry. Down insulates significantly better by weight than synthetic alternatives, trapping warm air in small pockets rather than compressing underweight the way most synthetic fill does over time. Item 18. Wool blankets and textiles layered throughout a home, over sofas, at the foot of beds, as a genuine insulating layer, not purely decorative. Wool retains warmth even when the air around it is cool, adding a real tactile warmth beyond what heating alone provides. Item 19. Passive house design principles, applied even partially. Extremely high insulation, airtight construction, heat recovery ventilation, working together as a single system rather than separate fixes. Denmark and Sweden are leaders in passive house adoption. A full passive retrofit is a significant undertaking, but even adopting 2 or 3 principles from it compounds meaningfully. Item 20. Green or sod roofing, torvtak, more common in Norway but present across Scandinavia. A living layer of soil and vegetation on a roof, providing natural insulation and reducing heat loss through the top of a structure, alongside genuine environmental benefits. And item 21, heated towel rails and warm bathroom flooring specifically, prioritized even in homes without full underfloor heating elsewhere, because a cold bathroom floor and towel are disproportionately unpleasant relative to their small footprint, and the fix is comparatively inexpensive to install. Here's what connects all 21. None of them are decoration. Every single one treats cold and darkness as an engineering problem with a real solution, not a seasonal inconvenience to simply endure. You don't need all 21 at once. Prioritize based on your actual climate and budget, starting with the cheapest fixes first: the draft excluder, the thermostatic valves, the layered lighting, before moving toward larger structural investments. Tell me in the comments which of these 21 is realistic for you to start this week. I read every single comment. And if you know someone whose home feels cold and dark every winter, without knowing there's an actual system behind fixing that, send this to them. I know the honest limitation of a list like this. Most of it assumes some level of control over your building structure. And if you're renting, several of these items: underfloor heating, cavity wall insulation, triple glazing, mechanical ventilation systems, simply aren't decisions you get to make. I don't want to pretend otherwise. So let me split this list clearly into what's actually available to renters versus what requires ownership or a landlord's cooperation, because the two situations need genuinely different priorities. For renters, here's your realistic list. In priority order: draft excluders on every exterior door, item 16. Cost almost nothing and take 5 minutes each. Weather stripping around window frames, item 10. A roll costs very little and is fully removable when you move out. Down duvets and wool textiles, items 17 and 18, are entirely portable investments that travel with you to your next home. Layered warm lighting and real candles, items 14 and 15, require 0 structural changes. A heated towel rail, item 21, often exists as a plug-in unit that doesn't require any wiring modification, and a curtain or partition near your entry door recreates a partial version of the Venfang effect, item 9, without touching the building itself. That's 7 genuinely accessible fixes, none requiring a landlord's permission, and together they address a meaningful share of the heat loss and darkness this entire list is built around. For homeowners considering the larger structural items, here's the actual technical priority order based on where heat loss typically concentrates in an existing home. Windows and doors first, because gaps and single glazing are usually the highest loss points relative to their cost to fix. Insulation second, particularly roof and loft insulation specifically, because heat rises and an under-insulated roof loses disproportionate warmth compared to walls. Heating system efficiency third, a heat pump upgrade or thermostatic valve retrofit, because you're improving how efficiently existing heat gets used rather than generating more of it, and structural additions like underfloor heating or a full passive house retrofit last, because they're the most expensive and highest disruption changes, best done during a renovation you're already undertaking for other reasons, rather than as a standalone project. I want to address cost directly because I don't want 21 items to sound like an impossible renovation budget. The cheapest 5 items on this entire list, draft excluders, weather stripping, layered lighting, candles, and a wool blanket or two, likely cost less combined than a single month's heating bill in a poorly insulated home, and they can measurably reduce how cold a room feels within the same evening you install them. The most expensive items, heat pump installation, triple glazing, a full insulation retrofit, are genuinely significant investments, but they typically pay for themselves over years through reduced heating costs, which is precisely why Danish building regulations mandate several of them in new construction. The national math works out in favor of the upfront cost. I also want to be honest about something specific to Denmark that doesn't transfer directly. District heating. Item 1 is a city-wide infrastructure system, not a product you can install in your individual home if your city doesn't already have the network. If you don't have access to district heating, an air-to-water heat pump, item 7, is the closest individual home equivalent in terms of efficiency and lower long-term running cost, even though the upfront technology and installation differ. I think the thing that actually surprised me most, learning to think about home comfort, this technically rather than just aesthetically, is how much of what we assume is simply how winter feels indoors turns out to be a series of fixable engineering gaps, not an inevitable seasonal reality. I grew up assuming every home everywhere had cold floors near exterior walls in January, drafts along the bottom of doors, a chill that central heating never quite fully resolved. It took me years of professional training to understand that Danish homes had simply engineered most of that discomfort out of daily life decades ago, systematically, at a national regulatory level in several cases, not because the climate itself was any milder, but because the building standards refused to accept cold, drafty homes as an acceptable outcome of a harsh winter. That's really the underlying argument for this entire list, beyond any individual item. Comfort indoors was never actually dependent on the weather outside being mild. It's dependent on whether the systems around you were actually built to handle the weather you're genuinely facing, rather than hoping a thicker sweater and a higher thermostat setting would compensate for gaps the building itself should have solved. You don't need to adopt all 21 of these to notice a real difference this winter. Start with whichever 3 or 4 are genuinely accessible to your specific situation, rented or owned, tight budget, or planning a larger renovation, and build from there as it makes sense for your home and your finances.